and welcome to Be the Light. I am your show host, Denisemrezsonya, and we are filming here from the Wofford Theater in Noblesville. I'd like to welcome today's guest, which is Wettrick from Noblesville High School. So welcome to our show.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. So, Don, I think that I'm busy, but you are the innovations teacher over there at the high school, and I follow your Twitter feed, and I see that you're out everywhere. I also see that we have some things in common. We've both written books. Pure Genius is Don's book. I won't tell you that I had a chance to read the whole thing because I didn't, but I did read some of it, and it's a pretty cool book, so I enjoyed the parts I did look at very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So how did this all start, that you're teaching this innovation class?
I think the genesis of it was probably two things. One, it was my dad. I remember I wasn't always in education. My first 3 years out of college, I worked for a think tank downtown Indy, and I always remember when I went back to him and said, because everybody in my family is in education.
Okay.
And when I told him I was going to go back to school and be a teacher, I thought he was going to say run away or don't do it. But instead he took this deep breath and he says, Donnie, I don't care if you teach for the next 20 years, just promise me you won't teach 1 year 20 times. And that always stuck with me because I don't like to do the same thing twice. Unless it's something awesome and you don't mind it, but every year is different. And that's kind of the hallmarks of innovation. Finding new pathways, finding new connections, and making things work. The second thing is that I saw Daniel Pink's TED Talk. For those of you that haven't seen Daniel Pink's TED Talk, you should. But he did a talk where he looked at companies like Google and Atlassian, and basically they found out that really employees enjoyed freedom and the chance for mastery more than like financial benefits. So when you allowed your employees to work on something they loved, they actually were happier than saying, here's an extra $5,000. And so at the time I was at another school and I was like, what if we tried that? And we tried it, and it was terrible and it was a miserable failure. But there was little nuggets that we learned along the way, and I think that was the third thing, is that we discovered this environment to where if you could learn without the fear of failing, but you still wanted to move forward, what would that look like? And it's actually the exact opposite of school. We have a culture in today's education system. We talk about growth mindset. Well, growth mindset depends on wanting to move forward. If students don't like taking the risk because of a bad grade, then you don't take risks. But you can't accomplish anything without taking risks. And some people are like, well, students don't like to take risks. Of course they do. Watch them play video games. Kids love to get beat on video games so they can try again and keep moving forward. So all these kind of things culminated into what I enjoyed and what I thought was pretty cool culture. And so we tried it. It didn't work well. And then the second year, it worked a little bit better. And
this
third
was
year,
at the other school?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And then Noblesville was pretty upfront about wanting me to come. And not that I had a bad time at my last school, but they were always a little hesitant on what if this happens or what if that happens. And at Noblesville, they said, no, if it doesn't work, then try something different. But they had a really high tolerance for risk. So I can't say enough good things about Noblesville schools. It's a pleasure to be there.
So how many years ago was it that you saw this TED Talk that inspired you?
Over 5 years ago.
Okay. And now the program's been at Noblesville for about
2 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought I read 5 years somewhere.
This is my 5th year having said class, but this is my
Okay.
second year at Noblesville.
Okay, that makes sense. So this is clearly a real hit. How are students... How do you decide what students get to take this class? I mean, I have to think there's a huge demand for it, and I think I read there's 60 students or something.
Right, I have 3 sections. And it grows, so the first year, and really it was kind of by teacher recommendation, and it really wasn't even by grades. I don't necessarily get too hung up on that. I'd ask some teachers, if this the student was allowed to work on something, would they follow through? And it's still not a hit with everybody. I mean, it's hard to do the things that you want to do as opposed to, that's like the difference between January 1st and January 2nd. It's fun to say you're going to lose weight. It's fun to say this year you're going to quit smoking or whatever. January 2nd kicks in and you have to do the things that you said you're going to do. So it's a little tough. So
clearly you're looking for certain characteristics in a student.
And ironically enough, it's not really about being a good student. It's driven by passion. It's driven by the things that you've always wanted to do. Honestly, when people say, could you describe the class for me? And I said, look, if I gave you an hour and a half every other day to work on the things you always wanted to work on, what would it be? That's the class. And they're like, seriously? You know, I mean, obviously I'm not going to let the kids build a bomb or, you know, make whiskey or things like that, but, you know, within certain parameters, most of our kids, they have...
As a parent, I'm very happy to hear that.
So, you know, they have a list of things that they want to accomplish, but that's also not for everybody. It takes some time for some of our students, and you're going to have one on today that kind of knew what he wanted right going in, but some of the kids, it takes them a month or so to like, seriously, you're going to let me work on this? Mm-hmm. Once they get over that shock, then they're off and running. But I've also had some students talk a really big game that they're going to accomplish this and that, and then they realize it's a lot harder than they expected.
Yeah, well, I get that. The reality is not always what you think it's going to be. But, you know, you and I share this passion for empowering young people, and I just think this is awesome. I did have the opportunity to sit through a few minutes of a meeting with some of your students, and I was, as you know, blown away by what I saw in just the few minutes I was there. They were standing there whiteboarding and just actually using real life skills that they're going to use out in the job force and critical thinking, and it was just really impressive to me. So
when you boil away everything of what we do, at the end of it, we teach our students how to think. That's it. We think through projects. Just today we kind of inherited a new space, and we were having, and the next guest will tell you about it, we were having to think our way of what would be the most optimal situation. I think that alone, like you said, empowering people to think for themselves, and I'm not bashing all of education, but sit down, here's what I want you to do, we have to have that. But we could also have a certain amount of time of, what do you want to accomplish? How can I help you? And teachers know we know a lot of people. So when we start connecting our students to people that we could learn from each other. Yeah. There was just a biotech company that was in 2 days ago, and they had the same impression. They were talking to some of my students, they're like, oh my gosh, this is great. Just today, like 30 minutes ago, I just got an email, hey, we've got a bunch of stuff that you can have that we want to work on with your students.
That's great.
You open up yourself to the world, and people want to believe that there's some really cool things going on in education. Luckily, I've got some students, and Noblesville's chock full of kids that want to do. So, yay for Noblesville.
So, again, getting back to how students are selected to do this, then, I would again think that there's got to be more students interested than there are spots. Is that the case?
Well, yes. We turned away some this year, but next year we're preparing for growth. Okay. Because it'll expand to some more classes, and quite frankly, I think there's going to be another teacher that's going to provide this as well, because eventually it'll outgrow me, and I want that to happen.
Right.
And my overall goal, which I'm sure we can hit on after the break, see that I get a segue, it's my goal to make sure that this class is in every high school in the United States. That's my goal.
It's a lofty
I
goal.
love Noblesville, and I want to stay at Noblesville, but I seriously think this should be in every high school, and the seeds of this also belong in elementary and middle school, which we can talk about later about innovation and Genius Hour and things like that.
And I certainly couldn't agree with that more. I'm all about the same philosophy, so I absolutely love this, and I'm excited to talk with you some more when we come back in just a moment from our break. We'll be back in just a moment.
We hit that on the second.
You know, when Margaret and I decided to sell the old estate here, we had only one choice in signage. Logan Street signs and banners. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore, but rather located on 10th Street on the south side of Noblesville. Well, we sold the old beauty, and we were able to buy this wonderful estate. And we had so much money left over, I was able to buy this beautiful 1968 Eldorado Cadillac for Margaret. Only 472,000 miles. Margaret loves it because it's got those big seats and that heavy-duty suspension to support her svelte frame. Next time you're looking for signs or banners, call old Jim at Logan Street Signs and Banners, 773-7200. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore.
Everyone knows it's easy to find first-run movies in the big theaters. But where can you go to watch your favorite classic movies on the big screen for the perfect night out? Why rent a flick when you can rent the entire theater? Call today to reserve our 32-seat theater for your next event, or just stop by to see what's showing this weekend. 14 by 7 foot screen and the high quality digital surround sound system offers all the amenities you would expect from the big theaters, with a laid back atmosphere and comfortable seating of your own home. Wofford Theater at 1744 South 10th Street in Noblesville gives you the classic movies you want with a big theater experience.
Welcome back to Be the Light. I'm your show host, Denisemrezsonya, and I'd like to take a moment to thank our show sponsors today, Hamilton County Television, Jim Wofford, and the Wofford Theater. And also, Don, one thing that we didn't talk about earlier was just if you wanted to share any contact information with our viewers.
Sure. If you want to see what we're doing in the classroom, we have a YouTube channel, NHS Innovation. I need to blog more. It's been a while, a couple weeks. theinnovationteacher.com. And then I'm really active on Twitter, at donwettrick, DONWETTRICK. And there, if you follow a Twitter list, it says Students 2015, 2016, and you can see what my students are up to because we want them to use social media.
Well, blogging, takes some time, so I don't even know when you have time in your schedule
that's been the problem.
to do something like that. So one of the things that you mentioned in your book is your family. What has your family's reaction been to all this? I mean, I would imagine you've gone to being pretty darn busy from what I've seen.
Yeah, I think this is the thing that I'm proudest of the most is that I integrate family time within it. If I'm traveling, it's as quick as I can. But it without a doubt, it's been an adjustment that I have 3 kids and I'm a decent teacher, but I'm a really good dad. So we actually had an agreement that no matter how crazy things got, that our agreement was no more than 2 visits a month because we felt that that was more than enough. Yes, I want to help other schools, but that's plenty. So the kids have done really well. And it's funny because I did more traveling over the summer, obviously. They didn't realize I was gone. It's summertime, they're kids.
Yeah.
So I'd call home like, do you miss Dad? We're outside playing flashlight tag. I love you. And then, they'd Skype me as quickly as they could and they didn't notice. During the weekday or during the school year, they miss it a little bit more. And again, a lot of times when I'm gone, the other day I was gone for 28 hours. So I try to be as much of a dad as I can.
So a lot of what you're doing while you're gone is speaking, from what I've seen.
And doing a lot of workshops, working with a lot of teachers in other schools, and again, trying to set up this kind of culture in other schools. Because what's going on and the advantages that we have at Noblesville, I want to see a lot of other schools have, because it's almost unfair. Like, we're getting to do so many cool things. I want more schools to experience that. So that's one of our missions. And quite frankly, I think one of the things I was proudest of, we had a really good, successful year last year, and I know of at least about 25 different programs that the students really helped create. Because we heard feedback from the principals or superintendents from these other schools in other states, and they were like on the fence whether they wanted to have this kind of class. They saw my students' output, and they're like, okay, worth the risk. And that has been probably that's our proudest moment, is that my students' work convinced other principals and superintendents to give it the green light.
That's fantastic.
That's a great feeling.
So a couple things that set this class aside from others, in addition to what we've already talked about, is that the students grade themselves.
Yes and no. I mean, they give me updates. We have a method called the Roth IRA, and a lot of times a project, so I'll go down the Roth. The R is realization. Every great project comes from this aha moment. The O is open discussion. Get your ideas out and start discussing it so we can go to the T, which is tussle. A lot of times what you think is a great idea, we'll fight it out. Somebody else will then say, no, you should think of this and you should think of that. That leads to the H, which is homogeneous grouping. You don't have to be in a group, but I like it when you are. So a lot of times those 2 people that sometimes argue, they might be a good group. Now you go to the IRA. This is the hard part of hard parts. The I is ideation and prototyping. So when you said, I'm going to write a book, write chapter 1. I'm going to write an app, write the first mod. And then the R, and this is where the grading comes in, the R is for reflection. And I don't want you to tell me fluff. I don't want you to try to make me happy. I want you to hear, what are you struggling with? What didn't go right? What could be improved? And that reflection leads to the A, which is adjustment. And really your new adjustment is your new realization. So that's a never-ending cycle. It's our cycle of innovation. So they're really graded on their productivity and the feedback they're giving me. And in some cases, you know, I've got some students that do their own podcasts. I'm literally listening to their product. So I know what's going on. I have some students that are shooting video or creating games or building apps and things like that. So a lot of times it's very visual. And if the point of the class is to be you making progress forward, the blog is just an update to me on how you're making progress. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect. I have a couple of kids that every now and then they give me a lot of fluff and say, I've done this and I've done that. Really? I'm looking at your stuff and I'm not seeing it. And then they have to tell me. And by the way, students are harder on themselves than I am. So when I said, what do you really think you deserve? You know, I every 2 weeks, and then they'll tell me and they're honest. And if they tell me, oh, I deserve an A, now we can negotiate, which, by the way, is a great life skill.
Absolutely.
So we negotiate things out. And ironically enough, the students that are really doing well, I leave them alone. The best thing I can do is get out of their way. And when they say, I need help, I'm helping. So that's like the first 7 or 8 weeks, I'm teaching new innovative skills, how to brainstorm, Roth IRA, whiteboarding sessions. Really, past then, the training wheels are off and they're working on projects that they find meaningful.
Now, you mentioned earlier about your accomplishments that had come back that you were proud of. So let's talk about some of the things that have come back. I mean, you've got last year 4 provisional patent submissions.
3. One was a copyright, but go ahead.
Okay. Some kids that are building apps, some that are entrepreneurs, and a whole lot of LLCs filed. I won't tell you guys how old I am, but I just filed my first LLC, so I'm really impressed that high school students are doing this.
They found out how alarmingly simple it is to be your own company in the United States. $50 and some paperwork and you're on your way. Of course, then you have to file taxes and everything else that goes along with it. But yeah, they wanted to see how hard it was to start your own business, and we gave them some time and some resources. And hey, ultimately my job is I don't want to create good little employees. I want to possibly create employers. And we've got some really cool students that they want to lead. And not that getting a job, hey, I've got a job, I take my orders too. But it's kind of my hope to have a bunch of independent thinkers that should they want to go on their own and should they want to lead, they can lead.
Yeah.
I'm in love with that concept.
Yeah, no, I am too. I totally agree. So as a parent myself, and for any parents or students that are watching this, if they're like, yeah, that is totally for me, I want to be part of that, how would they go forward with getting information or looking into it?
See your guidance counselor next year. So ours is sophomore, juniors, and seniors. So if you are watching this and you have a current freshman, then next year it'll be up for grabs. And yeah, as we grow, I mean, we'll be adding more people, but and then have your students be prepared to answer the question, because a lot of times I'll put them on the spot. Because of course this class sounds fun. And I said, what would you work on? I mean, the strike is already against you. Because I like the kids that have passion.
Yeah.
You know, your next guest coming up. You know, Luke told me from day one what he was going to do. So I had no doubt that he was going to do it. It's the kids that go, I heard this class is a lot of fun. Yeah, what would you work on? Fun? Have some passion, be driven by, something. Although I will say, some of our greatest breakthroughs, the students had no idea what they were going to do. They just had a willingness to try. So it's not that I want a lot of preconceived notions. That's kind of rare. But if I ask you a question, what would you want to work on? I just want to hear that you're passionate and you want to learn.
So can you again share the Twitter information, because I think from what I've seen, that's a great way to follow you,
Sure.
see what you're up to and what the students are up to.
Sure. At Don Wettrick, DonWettrick. That is us that's me on Twitter. And again, on the YouTube side, NHS, Noblesville High School Innovation. So that's our video channel there.
Great. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have one of Don's students on. We'll be right back.
When Margaret and I decided to sell the old estate here, we had only one choice in signage: Logan Street signs and banners. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore, but rather located on 10th Street on the south side of Noblesville. Well, we sold the old beauty, and we were able to buy this wonderful estate. And we had so much money left over, I was able to buy this beautiful 1968 Eldorado Cadillac for Margaret. Only 472,000 miles. Margaret loves it because it's got those big seats and that heavy-duty suspension to support her svelte frame. Next time you're looking for signs or banners, call old Jim at Logan Street Signs and Banners, 773-7200. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore.
Everyone knows it's easy to find first-run movies in the big theaters. But where can you go to watch your favorite classic movies on the big screen for the perfect night out? Why rent a flick when you can rent the entire theater? Call today to reserve our 32-seat theater for your next event, or just stop by to see what's showing this weekend. The 14 by 7 foot screen and the high quality digital surround sound system offers all the amenities you would expect from the big theaters, with a laid back atmosphere and comfortable seating of your own home. Wofford Theater at 1744 South 10th Street in Noblesville gives you the classic movies you want with a big theater experience.
Back to Be the Light. I am your show host, denisemrezsonya. No heckling in the audience over there, Mr. Wettrick. So we're going to put this young man on the hot seat now. This is Luke Reks, who is a sophomore over at Noblesville High School, and he is one of Don's students.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome, and I appreciate you being here and giving us some of your time today.
Absolutely.
So, how did you get involved with this class?
Well, last year my brother was in the first group of kids that were in this class for the very first year he was in school, and every day he would come home and always talk about how he was always doing all these crazy cool things. I'm like, that's not school, that's a different class. I'm like, okay, I kind of want to be in it. So my brother kind of helped me get into the class, but then as I went into the class, I knew I wanted to do. So that's really how I got into it.
Okay. So now, what is it that you went to Mr. Wettrick and said, this is what I want to do?
Well, I walked in the class and I said, hey, I'm doing video, so that's what I'm doing. I think it's so much fun just either videoing trips or just coming up with funny skits or documentaries and just filming it and making it in the whole process.
Okay. So can you kind of give me a little more information, like what are you actually doing? Do you have a specific project or?
Yeah, well, as of now, as a videographer, it's hard to define one project, but
Okay.
as of now, I'm in the process of making my own studio, kind of, because I will be going then to other companies and making advertisement videos for them.
Wow.
So that is my, as of now, project, but I mean, in the future, my projects will just be whatever videos I can work on. So that's, as of now, my project.
Okay, cool. So that leads you right into your career path and beyond.
As a full-time career, I don't really know how far that can go, but hopefully I'll be able to do that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, with all that experience under your belt, that's certainly going to be very valuable. So what do you think has been probably the thing that you've learned, the most important thing that you've learned so far in the class?
Well, first of all, the class is different, and it kind of makes me not like school because we can do what we want.
Yeah.
And
so the structure when you have to go
yeah.
back to your regular classes.
Yeah, it's hard going back to normal class. But I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Oh, I was just curious what your I don't even remember what I asked now about.
There you go.
What did you? I think it was going back to what you learned so far.
Yeah. Okay. I've really learned how to become kind of slim down my thought process and become more matured in that by kind of saying, okay, Mr. Wettrick, if you give me an area, some tools, and a little bit of a path, then I can take it. I got it. I've really matured in just kind of my thought process of how school should be, kind of. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So do you have a favorite aspect of the class?
I mean, there's all kinds of different kids in the class, so that kind of makes it funky.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my favorite aspect of the class, it's really, I don't know, it's really just what you want to do. I love that. I've never seen a class like this, and Oh my goodness, I love it. I mean, there's kids in there writing books, apps, all these different things. And then once we come together and have discussion, like just a big discussion, like it's so much fun. Like we're like yelling and stuff, but not like in a bad way. Like I've never been a part of a group discussion that gets to that. So like I just love the whole class.
Okay. Now, have you formed your own company at this point, or is that something you're thinking about?
I haven't. I'm like still in the process of it. I'm trying to still figure out what kind of group of people I'm going to be going to. Right now it's companies, but I could also go to kind of like short films. What is it? Short films for other athletes.
Promo highlight
videos. And like by me doing that, it can also become my job, like for high school. And I mean, like if you love your job, you never work a day in your life. So like, I love doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I worked in retail in high school, and I'm doing everything I can to empower my daughter so she doesn't have to. So I totally get that. So you talked a little bit about some of the other projects some other people are working on. Can you talk a little bit maybe more about some of what you're seeing go on in the classroom?
Yeah. So first of all, there's only like two of us, including me. So there's only one other kid in the class that does video. So whenever I need help with video, I go to him. But other kids in the class, I know a couple are writing books, and I don't communicate too much with other kids because just kind of when I get in the class, I do what I want, and then like I'm like gone. Like people will try to talk to me, I'm kind of like go away. But I mean, yeah, it's really whatever you want to do. I don't really know a whole lot about what other kids are doing in the class, just because I'm that kind of student that just does what I want.
What I would imagine, and I know from what I saw, I would imagine that everybody who's in this class shares that same excitement as you do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think I think to your point, it would be so cool if more classes at school could be that way.
Yeah, I have an English on English 10. My teacher loves what Wettrick does, and that class is forming a little bit into innovations, and I love it because like on the first day of school, she's like, "Okay, who's an innovation student?" I raise my hand, and she's like, "Yeah!" So then I just like take over basically. So I mean, I would love if like this could be incorporated into other classes. Yeah. And it's an easy way to incorporate it and then also learn like what you need to learn. Like my world history teacher is starting to get in it too. So like I love it.
Well, I think that's great because I mean I know traditional quote unquote book learning for me didn't stick. I need to be doing. So I really get that. And I know with my son in particular, I see boys really need to be up and active and moving and not just sitting behind a desk all day.
And in innovations, we really believe in that concept. We do whiteboarding a lot, just like writing out your ideas, figuring out problems. One day, like we just walked around with the whiteboards around the school, like we wheeled them around and just whiteboard everything down. Just because when you're up and moving, like you think better. I really think that's like true. Yeah. So I love that.
Yeah, I think it is too. So now Mr. Wettrick has helped you as far as giving you some direction. So then from there, now that you've pretty much got your direction, how does he assist you? Does he give you resources or how does that work?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of at the point in the class to where like I have what I need, so like kind of get out of my way kind of thing. Okay. So like, I mean, but I still go back to him if like I need contact or like, hey, I don't know really what to do from here. Just like kind of like bigger scenarios, because like I can figure out the little stuff, that's fine. But like just the bigger scenarios and like say me forming a company, like I don't really know a whole lot of like ropes on how to do that. So like then I would go to him. But after I get a little bit of it and understand something, like I'm gone. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Well, I think it goes without saying for anyone who's watching this or listening that this is an incredible asset for our students here in Noblesville, and thanks to Mr. Wettrick, hopefully beyond our borders and throughout the entire country. So I know, again, as a parent, I'm absolutely thrilled with this. This was when I originally went to the schools and asked what they would like discussed on this show. I can tell you that Mr. Wettrick's name came up first and foremost, and so I am very excited that he decided to, that he was able, to give us some time today because, again, he is really busy, especially with his travel. And Luke, I thank you so much for agreeing to come on and share some of your experience with us. So we are out of time for today, and we will not have an episode next week due to Thanksgiving. So I hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you.
How to get a hold of you?
In 2 weeks. Oh, yes, my contact information. I always do forget that, don't I? You can reach me through my website, which is denisemrezsonya.com, DENISEMREZSONYA.com, or you can call me at 317-200-2511. Thank you.
Cool.